Really? You're still bothered I skipped our night out? Those were Amber's exact words when I brought up her latest disappearing act, delivered with that dismissive tone that made me feel like I was being unreasonable for expecting basic respect. What started as genuine concern about our relationship had slowly transformed into something much more calculated. I'm a freelance graphic designer, 31 years old, the kind of guy who actually shows up when he makes plans, and I'd been dating Amber for 18 months. She's a social media influencer with 43,000 followers who posts daily content about lifestyle tips and relationship advice, which was starting to feel pretty ironic given how she treated our actual relationship. Thursday night found me sitting alone at Rainy Street Rooftop, this trendy bar in downtown Austin with string lights and a view of Lady Bird Lake, nursing my second beer while watching couples take selfies against the city skyline. I'd been there for over 2 hours, checking my phone every few minutes like some desperate teenager, waiting for Amber to show up for what was supposed to be our date night. The hostess kept giving me sympathetic looks every time she walked past my table, probably wondering if I'd been stood up or if my date was just running fashionably late. This wasn't the first time I'd found myself in this exact situation, sitting alone while Amber was somewhere else living her best life. 3 months ago, she'd bailed on the Hozier concert at the Moody Theater 30 minutes before showtime, claiming her friend Madison needed emotional support after a breakup, only for me to see Instagram stories of them at a rooftop pool party with other influencers. 6 weeks later, she canceled our weekend trip to San Antonio the morning we were supposed to leave, suddenly remembering she'd committed to a brand collaboration shoot that couldn't be rescheduled, leaving me with non-refundable hotel reservations and a cooler full of road trip snacks. Just 2 weeks ago, she'd missed our anniversary dinner at Uchi, the reservation I'd made 3 months in advance, because she got invited to an exclusive product launch event that she claimed was crucial for her career growth. Each time, she'd apologized with that same casual tone people use when they're sorry they can't make it to your birthday party, not when they've just destroyed plans that actually mattered to someone they supposedly cared about. My phone finally buzzed at 11:47 p.m. with a text that read, "OMG babe, got completely caught up at this networking event. So sorry, can we rain check? You're the best for understanding." I stared at that message for a long moment, sitting in my empty apartment after driving home from downtown, processing the fact that she'd kept me waiting for hours without a single update. The networking event, as I'd discover through mutual friends later, was actually a pool party at some tech entrepreneur's mansion in Westlake Hills where influencers were posting content about sustainable swimwear brands. Instead of the angry paragraph I usually typed and deleted, I sent back something that surprised even me, not bothered, just testing. Her response came immediately, "Testing what?" I didn't reply, but I was already formulating a plan that would teach her exactly what it felt like to have your time wasted and your expectations manipulated by someone who claimed to care about you. The opportunity for revenge presented itself 2 weeks later when Amber casually mentioned over coffee that our standing Tuesday movie nights needed to be rescheduled because they conflicted with her new hot yoga class at Core Power. I watched her scroll through her phone while delivering this news, not even bothering to look up as she dismantled another piece of our routine together. "Tuesday nights have always been our thing," I said, testing her reaction. "I know, babe, but this instructor is like Instagram famous, and being in her classes could really boost my wellness content," she replied, finally glancing up with that bright smile she used when she wanted me to agree with something unreasonable. That's when I remembered something crucial. Months ago, during the early days of our relationship when she was still trying to impress me, Amber had given me access to her Google Calendar so we could coordinate our schedules better. She'd completely forgotten about it, but I still had full editing privileges to her digital life, and that oversight was about to become her biggest mistake. I spent that evening creating what I privately called Operation Calendar Chaos, carefully crafting 7 fake romantic dates over the next month that would look completely legitimate in her scheduling system. The first was dinner at Laundrette, this trendy spot on East Cesar Chavez that required reservations weeks in advance, scheduled for the following Friday with a confirmation number I generated using a random number sequence. Next came a weekend wine tasting tour in Fredericksburg for the following Saturday, complete with a detailed itinerary featuring 3 specific wineries and pickup times. I added a private chef experience at my apartment for the Tuesday after that, listing a fake culinary company called Austin Artisan Experiences, with menu details featuring locally sourced ingredients and wine pairings. The following week got a couple's massage at the Four Seasons, VIP tickets to see Billie Eilish at Moody Theater, and a sunset kayak tour on Lady Bird Lake with fake rental company details. Each entry included realistic confirmation numbers, detailed descriptions, and even fake email addresses for the vendors, making everything look professionally coordinated and completely authentic. When Amber opened her calendar the next morning and saw this sudden explosion of romantic gestures, her reaction was exactly what I'd hoped for. "Oh my God, when did you plan all this?" she texted with 3 heart eye emojis, clearly caught off guard by what appeared to be a complete transformation in my romantic initiative. I responded with calculated enthusiasm. "Just realized I've been taking our relationship for granted. Time to show you how much you mean to me." Her reply came instantly, "This is exactly what I've been wanting. Finally, someone who knows how to treat a woman right." The irony wasn't lost on me that she was praising me for fake effort while completely missing the real effort I'd been putting in for months, but I played along with supportive messages about wanting to prioritize our relationship properly. Over the next few days, I watched her social media stories transform as she started posting about having the most thoughtful boyfriend and how consistency and effort really matter in relationships, apparently oblivious to the fact that she was describing everything she'd failed to provide me. Friday evening arrived with perfect Austin weather, and I watched from my apartment as Amber's Instagram stories documented her elaborate preparation for our fake dinner at Laundrette. She'd bought a new midi dress from Nordstrom, spent 2 hours getting her hair styled at her usual salon on South Lamar, and posted multiple mirror selfies with captions about date night energy and when your man actually plans ahead. I could practically feel her excitement through the screen as she applied what looked like professional-level makeup, clearly expecting this to be the romantic evening that would reset our entire relationship dynamic. Around 7:30, I received a series of increasingly confused texts from the restaurant area. "Babe, where are you?" The hostess says there's no reservation under our names, followed by, "Called the number you gave me and it's disconnected," and finally, "Are you running late?" I've been waiting for 20 minutes and I'm starting to look crazy. I waited exactly 37 minutes before responding with my carefully crafted emergency excuse: "Major client crisis. Logo design deadline moved to tonight. So sorry, we'll make it up to you with something even more special this weekend. Rain check." Her response revealed the first crack in her usual composure. "Jake, I got dressed up, canceled plans with Madison, and I'm standing outside this restaurant looking like an idiot. This better be a real emergency." I assured her it was work-related and completely unavoidable, promising that our weekend wine tour would more than compensate for the disappointment. Saturday morning brought even more elaborate preparation as Amber posted stories about her Fredericksburg adventure outfit, featuring cowboy boots, a flowing sundress, and a hat specifically purchased for wine country aesthetics. She'd clearly researched the wineries I'd listed, posting screenshots of their websites and talking about how excited she was to try their award-winning Tempranillo. I watched her drive 90 minutes west to Fredericksburg, documenting the scenic hill country drive with multiple car selfies and landscape shots, building anticipation for what she believed would be a romantic day of wine tasting and Instagram content creation. The first winery, Messina Hoff, had never heard of our supposed private tasting appointment, leaving Amber standing in their parking lot at 11 a.m. with a confused expression that she tried to hide behind forced smile selfies. The second location, Becker Vineyards, similarly had no record of our booking, and by the time she reached the third stop, Grape Creek Vineyard, her Instagram stories had stopped completely. Her texts to me grew increasingly frantic. "None of these places have our reservations. What company did you book through?" And, "I've driven all over wine country and nothing is working out. Where are you?" I maintained my pattern of delayed responses, claiming to be stuck in client meetings while suggesting she enjoy the spontaneous wine tasting anyway, knowing full well that weekend walk-ins at popular Fredericksburg wineries were nearly impossible without advance planning. By evening, she'd driven home empty-handed, having spent an entire Saturday and tank of gas chasing reservations that never existed, posting a single, notably restrained story about unexpected changes of plans that looked nothing like her usual enthusiastic content. The private chef experience scheduled for Tuesday created an even more elaborate setup, as Amber spent Monday shopping for the perfect dinner party at home outfit and cleaning my apartment while I was supposedly coordinating final details with the catering company. She arrived Tuesday evening with wine, flowers, and visible excitement about experiencing what she believed would be a professionally prepared meal in an intimate setting. When 7 o'clock passed with no chef arrival, followed by 8 o'clock, then 9, her calls to the fake Austin Artisan Experiences number reached only a disconnected voicemail. "Jake, something's seriously wrong with this company," she said, pacing around my living room in her carefully chosen dress while I pretended to frantically call the fictional business owner. "Their website doesn't even load properly now." I expressed appropriate shock and disappointment, suggesting we order takeout and promising that our couple's massage at the Four Seasons later that week would definitely make up for this string of bad luck with vendors. By Thursday, Amber's frustration had reached a boiling point that she channeled into what would become her most ironic social media content ever. I watched her create an Instagram story series titled, "When Your Man Can't Follow Through," featuring aesthetically pleasing text overlays against sunset backgrounds about the importance of reliability in relationships. "Ladies, if he can't keep his promises about the small things, how can you trust him with the big things?" she wrote, adding crying laughing emojis as if this was just relatable dating humor rather than a direct call-out of her own behavior patterns. "Some guys talk a big game about romance but can't actually execute," read another slide, accompanied by a photo of her looking disappointed in what appeared to be the Fredericksburg winery parking lot. The final story featured her perfectly manicured hand holding a glass of wine with text reading, "Know your worth, queens. Consistency is the bare minimum, not a luxury." I screenshot every single post, watching her unknowingly document exactly the kind of treatment she'd been giving me for months, except now she was experiencing it firsthand and apparently finding it completely unacceptable. That evening, I created my own social media response that would forever change how our mutual friends viewed our relationship dynamic. Using a combination of Instagram posts and stories, I crafted a detailed timeline titled, "A Study in Consistency," that methodically documented our relationship history with dates, times, and screenshots. The first slide showed our original anniversary dinner reservation confirmation from 3 months ago, followed by a screenshot of Amber's Instagram story from that same night at the influencer product launch she'd chosen instead. Next came the Hozier concert tickets I'd bought, paired with photos of her at the pool party she'd attended after canceling on me 30 minutes before showtime. The San Antonio hotel booking confirmation appeared alongside her last-minute cancellation text and the brand collaboration photos she'd posted that weekend instead. I included screenshots of our confirmed movie night plans from the past 6 months, each one crossed out with her cancellation messages and the yoga class announcement that had replaced our standing date tradition. The final slide featured a simple message: apparently consistency matters to everyone, including people who never learned to practice it themselves. The response was immediate and overwhelming, with mutual friends flooding the comments section with observations I'd never expected them to make publicly. "Dude, I always wondered why you looked so disappointed at group events," wrote Marcus, a photographer we'd met through Austin's creative community. "Now it makes total sense." Sarah, a lifestyle blogger who'd often collaborated with Amber, added, "Honestly, I've seen this pattern at events too. Amber's always looking for the next better opportunity instead of appreciating what's right in front of her." Even people I barely knew were chiming in with stories about Amber's tendency to RSVP to events and then not show up, or to leave gatherings early when something more exciting presented itself. The post reached over 1,500 likes within 6 hours, an impressive number for my usually modest social media presence, and was being shared in Austin creative community group chats by people who'd apparently been observing our relationship dynamics from the outside. Amber's own social media metrics told the story of her growing reputation problem as her latest posts received notably fewer likes and comments than usual, with several followers actually unfollowing her account after seeing the timeline I'd created. Her influencer collaborations began suffering immediate consequences as two major brands, a sustainable fashion company and a wellness startup, paused their upcoming campaigns with her after their social media managers noticed the relationship drama trending in local Austin hashtags. The controversy was damaging her carefully curated image as a lifestyle guru who had her personal life figured out, revealing instead someone who couldn't maintain basic relationship commitments while simultaneously lecturing her audience about standards and self-worth. By Friday morning, she deleted her critical Instagram stories about unreliable boyfriends, but screenshots were already circulating in group chats across Austin's tight-knit creative community, cementing her reputation as someone who couldn't recognize her own hypocrisy even when it was staring her directly in the face. The calendar confrontation came after our fifth fake date disaster, a supposed weekend spa retreat in New Braunfels that had Amber packing an overnight bag and researching couples' massage packages at what she believed was a luxury resort called Hill Country Serenity Spa. I'd spent considerable time crafting the fake booking confirmation, complete with a detailed itinerary featuring hot stone massages, mineral baths, and a private couple's suite overlooking the Guadalupe River, making it sound like the perfect romantic getaway that would finally prove my commitment to our relationship. Saturday morning arrived with Amber posting excited stories about her spa weekend essentials, featuring organic face masks, matching spa robes she'd ordered specifically for the occasion, and inspirational quotes about self-care and quality time with loved ones. She drove 45 minutes to New Braunfels, following GPS directions to an address that led to an empty lot next to a Dairy Queen, where she spent 20 minutes calling the fictional spa's disconnected phone number while locals stared at her designer luggage and confused expression. When she returned to Austin that afternoon, something had clearly shifted in her approach to our relationship troubles. Instead of the usual frustrated texts, I received a single message: "We need to talk. Tonight. Your place." The tone was different, more serious, and I realized she'd probably started connecting the dots between our recent string of booking failures and the pattern that was emerging. She arrived at my apartment that evening carrying her laptop, which immediately told me this wasn't going to be a casual conversation about vendor reliability or bad luck with reservations. "I figured it out," she said, walking straight to my kitchen counter and opening her computer without any of the usual pleasantries or small talk. "Figured out what?" I asked, maintaining the innocent expression I'd perfected over the past month of elaborate deception. "The editing history on our shared calendar, Jake. Google tracks everything, and I can see exactly when each of these events was created and by whom." She turned the laptop screen toward me, showing timestamps that revealed my late-night calendar editing sessions, each fake date entry clearly marked with my email address and creation times that coincided perfectly with my supposed romantic planning initiatives. I could have continued the charade, made up some explanation about booking systems or technical glitches, but looking at her face in that moment, I realized the game had run its course and it was time for the truth. "You've been creating fake dates for over a month," she continued, her voice steady but with an underlying tremor that suggested she was struggling to process the implications. "The restaurants, the wineries, the spa weekend, all of it was completely fabricated. You've been watching me get dressed up, drive all over Texas, and make a fool of myself, and you planned every single bit of it." I sat down across from her, suddenly feeling the weight of what I'd actually done over the past several weeks. "Yeah, I did. But why would you psychologically torture me instead of just talking about our problems like a normal person?" The phrase, psychologically torture, hit harder than I'd expected, forcing me to confront the reality that my elaborate revenge plot had crossed lines I hadn't fully considered. I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder I'd been keeping for months, filled with printed screenshots, calendar entries, and detailed documentation of every broken promise, canceled plan, and forgotten commitment from our entire relationship. "Because talking wasn't working," I said, spreading the evidence across the counter like a prosecuting attorney presenting a case. "Look at this, Amber. Really look at it." The documents told the complete story: 18 canceled dates in 12 months, 43 instances of showing up late without explanation, 7 major events she'd abandoned me at for better opportunities, and dozens of text exchanges where she treated our plans as completely optional while expecting me to be understanding and flexible about her constant prioritization of literally anything else over our relationship. I've been documenting this for months, I continued, watching her face change as she realized the scope of what she was seeing. Every time you've treated me like a backup plan, every time you've made me feel like I don't matter, every time you've broken a commitment without thinking twice about how it affects me. She stared at the spreadsheet I'd created, complete with dates, times, financial costs of her cancellations, and emotional impact ratings I'd assigned to each incident. You've been keeping score this entire time? I've been trying to understand why someone who claims to love me keeps treating me like I'm disposable. Word about my elaborate fake date revenge scheme spread through Austin's creative community faster than I'd anticipated, creating ripple effects that neither Amber nor I had prepared for in our relationship drama. Within a week, the story had become legendary coffee shop gossip among freelancers, social media managers, and creative professionals who'd witnessed our relationship dynamics at networking events and gallery openings throughout the city. Marcus, the photographer who'd commented on my Instagram timeline, apparently couldn't resist sharing the details with his podcast co-host, turning our personal situation into a 20-minute segment about creative problem-solving in toxic relationships that reached over 3,000 downloads in its first week. Some people found my approach brilliant, praising the poetic justice of making Amber experience the same disappointment and wasted time she'd been inflicting on me for months, while others condemned the manipulation and psychological warfare aspects of deliberately deceiving someone you supposedly cared about. The local creative Facebook groups became divided between Team Jake supporters who saw it as justified revenge and Team Amber sympathizers who viewed it as cruel and manipulative behavior that crossed ethical boundaries regardless of her past treatment of me. Sarah, the lifestyle blogger, even wrote a Medium article about the incident titled, "When Revenge Goes Viral, a Case Study in Digital Age Relationship Justice," which analyzed the ethics of using technology to teach someone a lesson about their own behavior patterns. Amber's influencer career took an immediate hit as 3 major brands, including a popular athleisure company and a trendy coffee subscription service, canceled upcoming collaboration contracts after their PR teams decided that association with relationship drama would damage their family-friendly brand images. Her follower count dropped by over 2,000 in the first month as the story spread beyond Austin's creative community into broader lifestyle and relationship content circles, with several popular TikTok accounts creating content about the situation and debating whether my actions were justified or abusive. However, the controversy also created unexpected opportunities for her as brands focusing on authenticity and real relationship struggles began reaching out, viewing her experience as genuine content about learning from mistakes and personal growth rather than the polished lifestyle advice she'd previously promoted. A wellness startup specializing in therapy apps actually offered her a partnership deal specifically because they wanted to sponsor content about recognizing toxic patterns in relationships and the importance of genuine self-reflection. Meanwhile, my own freelance business experienced a surge that I hadn't anticipated as potential clients began hearing about my creative problem-solving approach through word-of-mouth referrals from people who were impressed by the elaborate planning and execution of the fake date scheme. A local event planning company offered me a contract to design promotional materials after their owner heard about my attention to detail in creating realistic booking confirmations and detailed itineraries, apparently viewing my revenge plot as evidence of exceptional organizational skills and creative thinking. 2 tech startups approached me about designing user experience flows after learning about my ability to create convincing fake websites and booking systems, though I had to explain that my skills were more about graphic design than actual web development and that the fake vendor websites had been relatively simple creations. The Austin Business Journal even reached out for an interview about unconventional marketing strategies after someone pitched my story as an example of viral content creation, though I declined to participate because I was increasingly uncomfortable with the level of attention the situation had generated. My guilt about the psychological impact on Amber grew stronger as I watched her struggle with the aftermath of our public relationship breakdown, particularly when she posted a vulnerable Instagram story about seeking therapy to understand her own behavioral patterns and the way she'd been treating people in her personal life. Despite my anger about her past treatment of me, seeing her genuinely distressed about the damage to her reputation and professional relationships made me question whether my elaborate revenge had been proportionate to her original offenses. The therapy sessions she'd started attending were apparently helping her recognize the ways she'd been using social media validation to avoid addressing deeper issues about commitment and prioritization, but knowing that my actions had contributed to her emotional crisis created a complex mix of vindication and remorse that I hadn't expected to feel. Friends who knew both of us began expressing concern about the escalating nature of our conflict, with several people suggesting that we both needed to step back from the public drama and focus on either repairing our relationship privately or ending it cleanly without further social media warfare that was becoming uncomfortable for everyone in our shared social circles. 6 months later, Amber and I sat across from each other at Radio Coffee on Barton Springs Road, both of us looking like completely different people than we'd been during our calendar warfare period, having spent the intervening time in individual therapy sessions that had fundamentally changed how we approached relationships and personal accountability. The conversation that started this new chapter had happened 3 weeks earlier when she'd texted me a simple message: "I owe you a real apology, and I owe myself an honest conversation about what I learned from the worst period of my life." Her transformation was immediately visible in ways that went far beyond surface-level changes, though she had cut her hair shorter and dressed more casually than the Instagram-ready outfits she'd worn constantly during our relationship. But the deeper change was in how she spoke about her priorities and the way she'd restructured her entire approach to both her career and personal connections. "I've been working with my therapist on understanding why I treated people as disposable," she said, stirring her coffee without the constant phone checking that had characterized every conversation we'd ever had. Turns out, growing up with parents who were always chasing the next opportunity, the next promotion, the next social event that might advance their status, I learned that people and commitments were just stepping stones to something better. Her influencer career had evolved into something completely different and authentically successful as she'd begun creating content about recognizing toxic patterns in relationships, the importance of following through on commitments, and the genuine work required to rebuild trust after damaging someone's faith in your reliability. The vulnerability and honest self-reflection in her new content had actually increased her engagement rates significantly, with followers responding more positively to her authentic stories about learning from mistakes than they ever had to her previous lifestyle advice and product recommendations. Major brands were approaching her again, but now they wanted partnerships focused on personal growth, therapy resources, and authentic relationship content rather than the superficial lifestyle promotion she'd done previously. My own life had stabilized in ways that surprised me as I'd moved into a larger studio space in East Austin, funded by the unexpected influx of clients who'd hired me after hearing about my elaborate planning abilities, though I'd been careful to channel those organizational skills into legitimate business projects rather than revenge schemes. The creative community's response to our situation had actually opened doors I'd never expected, with several event planning companies and marketing agencies offering me contracts based on recommendations from people who'd been impressed by my attention to detail and ability to create comprehensive, realistic project timelines. More importantly, I'd learned to recognize the difference between someone who occasionally disappoints you and someone who fundamentally doesn't respect your time or emotional investment, a distinction that had helped me set healthier boundaries in all my relationships rather than building resentment until it exploded into elaborate retaliation schemes. What we had wasn't healthy for either of us, I admitted, watching her nod in agreement. I should have addressed the pattern directly instead of creating an elaborate punishment system that was honestly pretty cruel, regardless of what you'd done to me first. She smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her in years. And I should have recognized that treating someone like a backup plan while expecting them to prioritize me was completely hypocritical and unsustainable. We'd established new relationship boundaries that felt revolutionary compared to our previous dynamic, including weekly planning sessions where we explicitly discussed our priorities, commitments, and potential conflicts rather than making assumptions about availability or importance. We maintained separate calendars but shared a weekly coordination meeting where both of us brought our schedules, upcoming deadlines, and personal goals to ensure we were both making informed decisions about how to spend our time and energy. The structure might have seemed overly formal to outside observers, but for two people who'd nearly destroyed each other through poor communication and mismatched expectations, having clear systems for discussing priorities felt like a relationship superpower that prevented the small resentments from building into major conflicts. Amber had even started including calendar management and communication strategies in her content about healthy relationship practices, sharing the tools we'd developed with her followers who were struggling with similar issues about balancing personal relationships with career ambitions and social obligations. "I never want to make someone feel the way I made you feel," she said during one of our planning sessions. "And I never want to handle conflict the way I handled our problems," I replied. We both learned better ways to address issues before they become revenge fantasies. Our relationship looked completely different now, built on explicit communication, mutual respect for each other's time, and a shared understanding that consistency and reliability weren't optional relationship features but fundamental requirements for any partnership that hoped to survive beyond the initial attraction and excitement phases.